Hi everyone. Are you entering the second year of your bachelor's degree? That is, if you're a commerce student, are you entering the pre-final year? Or if you're engineering or any other graduate, are you entering the third year or the pre-final year? So, in short, if you're entering the pre-final year of your graduation, this video is definitely for you if you're thinking about CAT. Now, we all know what the CAT exam is about. The CAT test is for getting into the top IIMs and a lot of other colleges. So students now, when they look at CAT 2027, I've met so many students who are looking towards CAT 2027 and they think that there's a lot of time left still and we can start maybe in January, February and so on. Let me help you understand that is that the right approach? Is January a good approach, or should you start a batch now? And how does it help you? So before we do that, we will first talk a little bit about, what actually goes in. And today I'm talking mainly about quantitative aptitude. So especially for those students, this video will be really good. The ones who are slightly weak at maths or has a maths phobia. Okay. So let's talk about one such example. And so I over the years have met so many students, more than 10,000, 15,000 students I've met over the years. Now, if you notice what happens is that every year there are some students who always, after they start coaching, they realize that they've forgotten their maths from school and college. And hence, the advantage of starting early is that you can start revising those topics a lot more in detail. So first, let's talk a little bit about the syllabus breakup. So for example, when I look at what is the quantitative aptitude syllabus, so area wise and weightage wise, arithmetic is the biggest part. Okay, we will discuss what comes within arithmetic, but that is like, when I look at CAT, that becomes the most important area, post which is algebra. In fact, algebra was not asked a lot, I would say they've started asking more of algebra post CAT 2020. Then there is geometry, numbers and modern maths have gone down. In fact, topics like permutation, combination and probability, I would say, have literally disappeared from the syllabus. Not from the syllabus, but from it being asked in CAT. Now, let's talk about what is asked in arithmetic, what are the topics in arithmetic, and now why should you start preparing early and how will that help you? Now, for example, when you divide the whole syllabus of arithmetic, when I look at percentages, ratios, these two topics become the base for the remaining 6 topics. Because I need to know how to calculate a percentage, some percentage of something, or anything like that. Just for example, something we just came across a few days back. What is 28% of 2,500? Something I was just solving yesterday, and I immediately understood what it is, but I just wanted to explain it to students. Now, how many people are able to think in these examples that 28% of 2,500 is same as 25% of 2,800? And 25% is nothing but 1 by 4, and therefore this answer becomes 700. Now, the point is, you might learn this, but to keep thinking like this in a regular manner requires some amount of time. So if you're one of those who are starting early and does these topics well, like percentage, ratios, you do them really well, you have a huge advantage, because what happens is that then you can start thinking in terms of proper calculations. I'll give you one more example for ratios of a similar type. So for example, if you have 2x upon 2x plus 3 is 5 upon 6. Most of y'all would say, sir, let's cross multiply and get the answer. I would say slightly differently. In both the numerator and denominator, 2x is same. That was the important part. Now, if that is not same, that can be made same first. The difference between the numerator and denominator over here is 3. So for example, here there is no constant and the difference is 3. While on the right hand side, the difference is 1. If I make this 15 upon 18, my answer comes in one step. I can directly now say 2x is 15 and x is 7.5. That's it. You would have got this even in the longer approach. So the whole idea is, are you going to be able to think like this without spending too much time over things? And once you do these two topics, your base for the other topics really goes well. So the longer you, and especially again, the ones who are weak at maths, for them it becomes very, very important, because what happens now, they get chance to revise all the basics. And especially at iQuanta, the way we made our non-engineers QA module, which is like a basic module for you to revise everything, then all these chapters you can actually revise a little bit regularly, and then you get into live class. It helps you a lot. Important chapters over here, work, pipeline systems, and time, speed, distance become very, very important. Obviously, I would say every chapter is important because questions from all chapters are asked, but time, speed, distance, and all have a slightly more weightage. So that was arithmetic. Coming to algebra, algebra, a lot of students are able to look at these two chapters and say, okay, these two I'm comfortable with. Yeah, I'm sure you're comfortable with linear equations with two variables. But what about linear equation with three variables, with four variables? Are you comfortable with that? You're comfortable with basic quadratic equations. Okay, but what when there are questions go into those alpha plus beta and alpha beta and all those type of questions? Sum of the roots, product of the roots. Functions, anyway, a lot of commerce students fear this topic. They really have a phobia for this topic. They look at f of x and they start running away from it. Okay, so that's one thing that removes the phobia. Inequalities can be a little bit difficult. Maxima, minima, plotting of functions, all these things. So functions and plotting of functions can be together. So these things, if your base is clear or if you have more time to spend on this. So for example, in a batch which you should start say in Feb, March, April, you would get maybe say 20 days for this whole module. But if you really have started earlier, you would get 1.5 months, maybe 2 months for this module. And hence that phobia for functions and all can actually be removed through live class, through assignments, application classes, and so on. Okay, that is very important. Algebra is very important, around 25% weightage in algebra. Geometry, geometry, I've noticed one thing. Either students love geometry or they hate it. There is no in-between thing for geometry. Normally people, and a lot of people don't like it, majorly because they do not remember the concepts. So my favorite thing, which, if you've seen my videos earlier also around geometry, I always say this. Most of the people know Pythagoras theorem. They all know how to solve Pythagoras theorem. So for example, if this is 5, this is 12, they can find this if it's a right angle triangle, right? But do they know how to use Apollin's theorem, or do they even remember what is Apollin's theorem? They remember congruency of triangle. Do they remember similarity? Even if they remember similarity, do they remember midpoint theorem? What happens in coordinate geometry? Trigonometry, so I'm still not even getting into it because a lot of people who have skipped maths in 11th, 12th would not know trigonometry at all and coordinate geometry. So hence geometry is one area which is heavy in concepts. Heavy in concepts means it has lot of concepts. I would say if you actually make a list of all geometry concepts itself, they would come up to around 100 concepts. So again, coming back to the same point, concepts will take time. And even after you know the concept, to revise it and to remember it is one part, but to apply it is another part. And that is why geometry concept heavy topic. You cannot go ahead in a question without knowing the concept of that question. So for example, a simple thing I'm asking, most of the people would know area of a triangle is length into breadth. But how many people remember area of a hexagon? So if you don't remember area of hexagon, and a question will be very easy, find the area of a particular type of hexagon. But if you don't remember the formula only, you're going to waste your time, right? So hence all these things become important. Numbers. I have put the arrangement of my topics based on the weightage and CAT, but numbers would be one of the first areas to do. Because there are a lot of things which you, especially in classification of numbers, you can call this classification or properties of numbers, whatever you want to call them. So classification or property of numbers, this is where you start revising maths actually again. What is a rational number? What's an irrational number? What's a integer? What's a fraction? What's a positive integer? What's a negative integer? Whole numbers, natural numbers, all these things become very, very important. How to convert from decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals and so on. HCF, LCM, very important topic for even other topics. So when you come back, you do HCF, LCM, and then you can go to arithmetic completely in detail. Factors, CAT loves somehow. Whatever they ask is around factors always. Factorial is something which is new for a lot of people, like 7 factorial, 8 factorial. Yes, we've done it in permutation combination, but how to use it in numbers becomes very important. Surds, indices, and logarithm, my favorite areas. I tell people that consider this as a separate area only. If you consider this whole thing as a separate area, and in CAT you can expect around 2 questions from it. and this will be like a good area. But again, logs is the area which a lot of students haven't done too well in school and college, and that is why you would require that much extra time. Modern maths, except progressions, I would say these two topics are not very important. Set theory and Venn diagram is not so important for quantitative aptitude, but very, very, very important for DILR. So even though you might learn this in maths, but you might use it in DILR. Progression, very important. You always see one or two questions from progressions in CAT. Arithmetic, geometric, AGP, all those type of questions can be asked. So again, my whole point again and again I'm trying to make is that the amount of time you require to study. Now, normally, you know what I tell people, so when I look at the whole CAT syllabus, I say there are around 35 chapters. Just for example, let's say there are 35 chapters. Okay. What happens if you start a batch, say, even in this August for CAT 27? If you start a batch in August for CAT 2027, you have a good 1 year, 3-4 months, right? Even if you spend the first month on only revision of basics, 1 month completely on revision of basics. Like in maths, you can talk about revision of basics. In LRDI, you can talk about revising some kind of, or starting to play some kind of puzzles and all, which will improve your logic. In verbal, you can start reading stuff, because maybe a lot of you have not read for years and years. So reading becomes very important. So 1.5 months if you spend on basics, even from September onwards, the 15 months which you have, okay, the 15 months which you have, and if I want to save at the end around 4, say I want to complete my syllabus in such a way that I'm left with 4 months at the end. I don't want it to complete too early also, because I don't want to peak too early also. So which means I have 11 months for syllabus completion and 35 chapters, which means I need to do approximately 3 to 4 chapters per month. Not even 4, 3, just 3.2 types chapters per month. Now, if you want to do only 3 or 3.5 chapters per month, what happens is you have enough time to revise. I've already given you some time to do basics, but you have enough time to revise your stuff. You also have time to come back to a module if you have missed something, you have not worked on it too well when it was done in live class, say you had, because what will also happen is during these 15 months, you will also have college exams, university exams, whatever you all are doing, or if you're working professional, you have a hectic working month or whatever. So, you know, you don't need to leave your job and start studying for this. Then you can, if you're doing this way, you can take enough time over the period and keep preparing. So my whole point over here is that in these 11 months, doing 3 chapters per day, 3 chapters per month, you have enough time for everything. You know, you have time to go back and solve. So for example, at iQuanta, what we have is we have the live class, then we have the application classes, then we have the assignments, then you have the slightly more difficult question through the IMABC batch. So all this stuff you will be able to complete. And if you have taken the book will have another, say, approximately 700-800 questions per area. Okay. So all this material which we are talking about becomes a huge, you know, a lot of students who join late always have this problem that, sir, we are not able to complete everything. And then I have to tell them, okay, do only this much and go ahead. Don't worry about the book now. You can come back to the book later, and so on. But if you're studying right from start, you'll be able to complete everything on time. Next thing which I will always advise is, you know, you have a chance to fall back or come back. You can make a comeback. So for example, something went wrong, whether in school, whether in college, whether at work, or due to any other pressure, you missed 1 month class or whatever. Then there is a chance to come back, because when you have started early, you have that much extra time. You can always maybe cover a few chapters which you have missed in your batch, in the batch which starts later. But if you're joining towards the last, there is no batch after you, which means if you have missed something, you cannot cover it up. So all these things, the comeback chance is available mainly for students who start around August. So that's why my advice will be always to start early. Now, let's talk about a batch which we are starting. We'll be starting a batch soon at iQuanta. The details will be on the screen for you. So anybody who's thinking about CAT 27, can call one of our call us up. One of our counselors will explain all the details to you. And if you have any queries, you can also put it in this chat. Somebody or the other will try and answer the queries in this chat box also. Well, thank you everybody. I hope this video helps you take a decision of what you want to do with your career, so that if you want to start early and make a good career, that should really help you. Thank you.